Welcome to the Unapologetic Podcast with Kaitlyn Talamante, hosted by LadyBoss. This is a space where women rise, own their power, and stop playing small. We get real, we get raw, and we get fired up about confidence, health, business, and life. If you're ready to step into who God made you to be and unapologetically live your best life, then girl, you are in the right place. Let's do this.
This is what unapologetic looks like.
This is my era. I'm walking boldly in my purpose. I'm done dimming my light.
I'm done playing small. God didn't create me to blend in. I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. The old me was surviving. The new me is free.
We rise together.
Here's to living life unapologetically. Welcome back, ladies, to the Unapologetic Podcast. Today's episode is going to touch your heart in a deep way because we're talking about something that every one of us will face at some point: loss. And when it happens, it shakes up everything: your faith, your identity, your future, all of it. My guest today, Tina Weller, knows that pain personally. She's a grief and wellness coach who has walked through the unimaginable, losing both her husband and her son. And yet somehow she found a way to keep moving forward, to find purpose and help other women do the same. This conversation isn't about pretending it's easy, because it's not. It's about finding hope again, one breath at a time. Tina, before we dive into all the incredible work you're doing now, I want to start with you. Can you share a bit of your story and what you went through and how it led you to becoming a grief and wellness coach and helping the people you're helping now?
Well, I love that, Kaitlyn. Thank you so much for asking. Yes, amazingly, the things that we go through in life, everything that we've been through that's led us to where we are now, everything is an opportunity for learning. So a brief part of my story, I actually went to college and have a degree in psychology, which of course that was just a couple of years ago. And then from that, I was able to work in that field for a while. And I was married, had children, that scenario of the dog, the children, the husband, the white picket fence almost. And then as time progressed, my oldest son was diagnosed with a Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So that is a progressive muscle diagnosis that will, take their life eventually. So that was what I worked with for years and years. And then as our life continued, my husband retired at 55. And just 4 short years after that, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And that is a fast progressing diagnosis. So he was with us for a year. I was blessed to be able to have him and in our lives. And then after that, really 4 short years after that, my son also passed, because the disease had taken him and he was just progressively, his body was tired. So in a 4-year period of time, my husband passed and my son passed. So I found myself in, now what? And of course, I still had my other children. So that's what, things that keep you going. So I worked on myself first. I spent really 2 years of time going through, who am I now? What do I do? And because it ends up that I was actually half of something that used to be a whole. Now it's only half is here. So there was a lot of steps that I went through. And again, about 2 years time, of course, consistently learning, but that's led me more to where I am today. And I now support other women that are experiencing the same thing, the loss of a spouse, a loss of a child. And I usually say a few good men also, because of course they do have those same losses. I am a woman though, so I happen to be a little bit closer in the understanding with women. So thank you.
Can I ask, what was the hardest part in finding your footing after losing both your husband and your son?
Is an excellent question. And honestly, I have found with myself and with others that is different for everyone. And for mine, when my husband passed, I still had my children. I still had my son that had that diagnosis that needed me, and that kept me going. Then when my son passed, that's where everything really changed for me. Because as we all know, we raise our children to grow up and leave the nest. We raise our children to not need us anymore. And that's a beautiful thing. So my other children were already grown out of the house, married, and such things. So then that left me there alone in the house, alone, complete silence. And that was one of the things that took me the most to get past, because I actually had both my husband and my son at home. We had nursing care and machines and the noises and nurses in and out. So it was a true silence just in one day's time. So for others that I have asked, though, and done some interviewing of others, some of them actually said to me they were afraid of where they were going to live. Now what? After their spouse passed, we'll say. Then they were afraid they were going to lose their home. They didn't have some place to live. Others expressed to me that finances, and again, speaking just through of the individuals that I interviewed, of the few, most of them, their spouses, which happened to be their husbands, had done all the finances. They had paid the bill.
Mhm.
They had, some of them, they were the main breadwinner of the home. And when they were gone, the women were left and they really didn't know anything about their finances.
I can picture that. I mean, it makes so much sense. But not only do you have the grief and everything you've got to work through and process because you just lost your partner in life, but now all the stress of the finances that you've never had to take on before. Like, oh, I can only imagine that weight.
And that's
Was
something
there?
that
Oh, go ahead.
was something a little bit different for me. Again, the time my husband had retired 5 years before he actually passed, and we had a plan to do. And then when he was diagnosed, that particular diagnosis, we also had that year that he was still with me. So that's another example of every loss for every individual is different. There are no two that are alike. My husband and my son were completely different losses. And one, the first thought that, over time has come to me, I chose my husband and I gave birth to my son. There is no deeper connection between one that you choose being your spouse and the birth of your child. So those were some of the deepest losses that an individual can experience. As I know there are others, and again, none loss can be compared to because the individual circumstances are just so uniquely different.
We are. Whoa. Was there a moment after you lost both your husband and your son where you questioned if you'd ever find joy again?
I did. And again, it took me some time. Now, this was one thing that it was unique for me to learn. Of course, I say that I had the other children or I had something else to focus on. So my children had all gone to university. They had been married and they were having their own children. So then it was the focus of my grandchildren that actually ended up being a saving grace for me. I will say, though, to be honest with you, that's what really took the 2 years. It was very surprising. And this was one of the, just personally, I could not even imagine after studying my background with psychology and knowing how, the mind works and all these funny things, and I had no idea that I'd imagine that my grandchildren would affect me so. And it was so different than someone would expect, actually. And to explain that, I was blessed to be at the birth of two of my grandchildren because they are my only daughter asked me, and her husband, of course, was there too. So it was a beautiful thing. She asked me to be at the birth. So her and her husband were there, and I was there, just the three of us. And when her second child was born, that was right after the 2 year mark of it was my son's passing. And what I did not realize at the time was she had planned that when he was born, she was going to name him after her brother, which is my son. So some of the things that I've learned about myself is how I accepted that and how grief was so different in that aspect. We have the beautiful idea of a birth of a new baby. I was there. I actually saw that new baby being born before my daughter did. Yeah, that's a little personal.
It's an
Beautiful.
amazing experience.
Yes. And I found after I had planned to be at her home for 2 weeks again with her and her husband to help with the new baby things, whatever they might need. And it came about one weekend, the end of the first week. And she says, Mom, you need to go home. And I was like, very loving, very loving. Absolutely. She had tears running down her face. I had tears running down my face. And I realized that it was the grief that I was experiencing from my son that had passed. And when her son was born, it brought up all those beautiful memories again. But it also brought up the loss again. So in that ended up, that was a year and a half, no, 2 years ago now. That ended up being one of the best and one of the most loving things that my daughter could have ever done for me. In the saying very lovingly that Mom, her husband and her had talked, we love you being here, but you need to go home. You need to spend some time at home and go through some of the things that you've been wanting to go through, meaning some of the brothers' things. And it was an amazing therapeutic experience that I had no idea was going to happen 2 years after the passing of my son.
So powerful. You talk about walking beside people during their grief, going through grief, and not trying to fix it and not rush it, which probably 2 years later, right? But
Right.
just being with them. I love that so much. For the woman who's listening that are either grieving or supporting someone who is, what do we tend to get wrong about grief?
Well, every question that you ask, I love. I'm like, oh, how can I answer it a little differently? It's kind of a fun challenge. Let me see. But then I have to keep in mind, you haven't heard the answer yet. So why does it need to be different?
Yes, no.
So one of the things that I have actually, it will answer this question in a little bit of a roundabout way. One of the things that we have figured out as those of us that have lost someone, or some of the interviews and things that I had done with some individuals just for some research, grief is not talked about. Grief and death and dying in general is not talked about. Now, it needs to be talked about because it's one of the guarantees in life. We are, and usually, actually, when I do a stage talk, I'll say there's 2 guarantees in life. One is change, and the other is none of us are getting out of here alive. So, with that, and it's
I bet
kind
they
of
get through.
I know the room will get a chuckle, because they don't know yet what I might be going to be talking about. But knowing that to be more comfortable with death and dying, because it's a natural cycle of life. You have the birth and you have the death. So with that, probably almost all of us have made the mistake of when someone has lost an individual, what to say to somebody, what to do. So in these interviews, one of the things I love it, one of the ladies, it was actually from my little church, one of the widows was saying when she was in her husband's visitation, the procession line, someone came up to her and said, he's in a better place, which is a very common thing for individuals to say, he's in a better place. And she real quickly said, yeah, but I'm not. She's the widow and she was suffering. She's not in a better place. She was in the worst place in her life that she'd ever been because her husband died of a massive heart attack in their kitchen. It was unexpected. So another story that I heard more recently when I was traveling, a woman, her child had passed, and this was a 6-month-old baby girl had passed. And another woman came up to her and said, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. I understand. My dog passed away last month. Now, I mention that because those of us who have lost an individual, a loved one, and for those of us who have been blessed to not have lost someone yet, because again, life and death is a natural thing. I want to educate others on maybe not what not to say, quite truthfully. There is no way at all for anyone that an animal is comparable to a human child. With that statement, now I will say also, we love our animals. Absolutely. We love our animals. I travel with mine. And something to be cautious, if you would please, when you're speaking to someone who has lost a loved one, please don't compare them to the loss of an animal, because that is another unique, separate thing.
It is. Can I ask you, what are some of the better things to say? And I want to give a little context with this question, because obviously I don't want to go compare your loss of a child, any human being, to an animal. But like you mentioned, talking about death and grief is a very hard one and awkward. And because we make it, I don't know why. I mean, I'm saying this out of experience. In fact, if I'm being honest, there's a gal, she just recently lost her son this past summer in my community. Her son and my son played on the same football team. And I've said hi to her. I've had conversations with her, but I've not even addressed the loss of her son because I don't know what to say. And I'm worried about bringing up those emotions. And then I'm worried about myself getting emotional, even though, so what's the best way to, like, I don't want to, like, just support and show that you care without putting your foot in your mouth and without crossing the line.
I love that question. I'm so glad that you asked. The one thing that is so important for anyone that has lost a loved one is to continue to say their loved one's name, even if this is a very large misunderstanding for all of us. And I will admit absolutely for myself also that we are hesitant to say the loved one's name because it might bring up those feelings. Exactly, Kaitlyn, what you just expressed. Exactly. And at the same time, a person's name, any of us, our names are the most beautiful word in the human language. I'm sure you all have heard that before. When a person hears their name, they, kind of perk up, look around, When you hear the loved one's name that has passed, it's the same because you are keeping their memory alive by saying their name. Now, I will also add to that, it depends on, where the context is. In the middle of a particular cocktail party and you are talking about various things, maybe that's not the time. Now, if someone's loved one used to attend that cocktail party and you're talking about, I remember when you and Joe were here last year and you had just started, building a fence. Did you get that done? It's just very comfortable, casual, as if you're still saying the person's name. And I have tried that and done that with people, and I can just say they light up. I mean, literally, especially a woman, and especially a woman if she's lost her child. She will light up and say, I'm so glad. Thank you for asking. Now, not all, I will say that, probably not all of them, but thank you for asking because nobody wants to talk to me anymore. People avoid even seeing me because they're afraid they're going to hurt my feelings. So what is starting to happen with that mother that has lost her child is exactly people are avoiding her. They don't show up anymore. Someone that used to be her friend and sat beside her, they ghost her. And it's her son that's no longer there, not her. And that is a double level of suffering because not only has she lost her child, and he's not here for people to see, people aren't seeing her anymore if they know that child. So that's something, and I'm sure you may have another question or so I can think of a better way to answer that. It is so important though. And I have literally seen that and it's kind of shocking at first because I have a woman that's my age. Her 21-year-old daughter passed because she fell off the Rocky Mountains on a climbing incident. She was doing what she loved, though, absolutely doing what she loved. And I will go to her and I'll say, oh gosh, I remember when the girls were doing this. And I'll say her daughter's name. And she's like, yeah, those crazy kids. And we'll just start talking about the kids. And it's not as if they're still here. Not as if they're still here, but it's a story as a memory, which would be maybe to help understand. It'd be comparable to when you get together at a family gathering and you're talking about what you did last Christmas. It's the same thing.
It's so true because like I said, I've done it where it's like I haven't mentioned him at all and I don't bring it up, not because I don't care, but then it's eye-opening to hear you say, like, then you've got the double whammy of being alone because everyone pulls back because they're so concerned to say the wrong thing instead of saying anything at all. And so then you're just in a whole nother level of lonely, which I'm going to assume, answer me if I'm wrong, being on the next level of lonely after losing a loved one is not the best way to help you get at it, to start living life again.
It's not. It's not. And maybe I just now thought of this. It popped in my mind. It might be because I'm sitting here with you, Kaitlyn, and it's like, women, we were having a girlfriend chat here or something. I'm thinking when someone has a girlfriend or a boyfriend and you break up with that girlfriend or boyfriend, now you keep going on. Life still goes on. You go to that same party the next time and your best friend that you only see on weekends asks you, hey, what about, oh yeah, you still say the person's name because maybe you were dating for 2 years and he was a part of it. So yeah, they're part of the story. So your whole story specialize or make different categories. It is a little bit hard not to, though, when you're talking about someone that you chose being your spouse, someone that you gave birth to, or possibly the blessing of someone that you chose. We have adoption of children, foster children. So all of those, your child that you are a parent figure for is a huge, because you are being their parent figure. You are being who they are looking up to. You're modeling everything for them because they're going to, and all of a sudden they're not there anymore. So a lot of individuals, now what's my purpose? Lots of individuals. Some of them go into a why me? What now? This was my purpose in life. I was going to my purpose as a mother. I went to those football games. Now what do? I don't have a child that plays football. So that's a whole aspect of that part of life, the whole part of that identity. They're no longer a football mom, or they're no longer a wife. They're no longer a sister if they lost a sister. They're no longer a brother or an aunt, because it could be any loved ones specifically. But it's amazing. And going back to something that you did ask also, what do you say? I'm sorry for your loss. Always that can work. If you are not sorry for their loss, of course, be truthful. If you are not sorry for their loss, I'll be a little funny here. You don't need to be there. You don't need to walk up to them and say anything.
No.
Quite truthfully, that's always a good thing that you can say. If you are close enough that you're going to be there, you're going to see the individual that just lost a loved one, that most of the time is a very good answer. I'm sorry for your loss. And that's it. Zip it.
Thank you for sharing that. I know you've done a lot of coaching around this, and you also mentioned you did the school for psychology and you've done a lot of energy work. And I know the women you work with, and I know there's women listening, when you're working with them, they want to heal. There's women listening who want to heal. They don't know where to start. So how do you help women find where to start in their healing journey?
One of the things also that I specifically had to learn, and I share with others, when someone offers help, accept it. You're not being weak by accepting help that they may offer. Go ahead and accept that. So those of us that are offering something or trying to figure out what to say for another person that's lost, it goes that way also. So someone, just go and mow their yard. Just go and drop off some groceries. Just go and pick up their children from school. And the reason that became very quickly evident for me as the extreme, someone asked me, how are you doing? And I said, fine. I'm good. I'd put a smile on my face. Thank you for asking. Oh my goodness. That was so canned answer fake. And what I say though, they believed me, because these individuals had not seen me for a while. They didn't know. They believed me. And what I have to say about that, I was basically lying about that, because no, I'm not fine. Why did I say that? So an individual that is in a deep grief, or any kind of grief, you never know when it's going to show up. So go ahead and just offer, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm here if you need me. It's something that's common to say, but we need to know to take that one step better, because I'm telling you, a grieving individual will not go find you. They're not going to go and say, well, I remember when Kaitlyn said she's there if I need her. Nope. So if we want to support those individuals, really do it. I've had people say that someone just goes to their doorstep and knocks and just sits right there on their stoop. They are really there.
Mm.
And then just go knock on their door and maybe not take that casserole, because a lot of people end up with all kinds of casseroles and food, and then there's nothing to do with it because there's nobody there anymore. But go ahead and I'm just going to come in and sit with you. You don't need to talk. I actually brought some of my knitting with me. I just thought I was either going to sit at home and do it, or I can just do it right here in your living room. If you'd like to talk, I'll be right here. So you are really actually physically there with them, because a grieving individual is not going to go find you. They may not even remember that you said that, because when that is happening, it is so foggy, so blocked, our minds in the deep grief. And most individuals, again, the women that have lost their spouse or their child is what I'm the most familiar with. They don't remember a thing about the visitation, the funeral. They don't remember it. So anyone that came through that line and said anything, they have no idea who was even there. Now, that's not always. I will be honest with you, of course, but most of the time. So for us to go and just support that individual, just go to their house. Go, if you used to do something with that individual, go do it. Maybe you only get together once a month. Well, this time you're going to get together next week. Don't wait until the second week of the next month when you usually do it, because right now is when they need it. The other thing that I heard actually from a gentleman that I was speaking to, his brother-in-law passed. So that would be his sister's husband. And he wasn't able to make it. It was in a different state. He wasn't able to make it because it was at the same time his daughter's graduation. I mean, it was something very significant, very important. It was understood. And he said one of the best things that he did, and his sister also mentioned to me that he went the next week after everything. And it was one of the best things that they could have done, because everything still goes on. Life still moves forward, ready or not, after the loss of that individual. And if you have the ability to be there the next week or 2 weeks after, that's when things really hit, especially if it happens to be a significant other or a spouse, because that is half of that person that used to run the whole house. They're not there anymore. So that was a very good thing to make note of, to support others also. Go a little later, ask, go again, just show up.
That's amazing advice. Thank you. Because I speak from my experience of you have the funeral and then life moves on, right? And it's so easy to get caught in
Mhm.
that, but it doesn't move on for everyone. How can we
Mhm.
support them? For a woman who's lost someone, what can living again look like after losing someone? How do they start allowing joy back in without feeling guilty?
That is such a beautiful question. And that is one of the things that takes a little bit longer, because, of course, we don't want to. We've lost a loved one. It's like, no, I don't want to. I don't know how. What am I supposed to do now? We've used to share this. And no matter who it is that you've lost as a loved one. So, one of the things that I do know, you need to give yourself time. Allow yourself the time to grieve. Allow yourself the time to sit and be with your grief and maybe just do nothing for a little while. And that little while could just be 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be an extreme long time. But if you sit with yourself for 30 minutes in silence, or walk in nature, enjoy the birds, listen to some music, whatever you're the most comfortable with, allow yourself that time. And then from that, you'll be able to move forward. And each time you do that, it gets easier and easier. Another thing that I have found helpful for many people is journaling. A lot of individuals find that by writing a letter to their loved one or by writing a story, their favorite memory, anything they can do, it sparks that. They'll end up with tears in the beginning, and then a little bit through it, they'll end up happy, and it's happy tears, and then laughing. And that's where the healing is starting to go. And then that's where, when you say that person's name, it's like, yeah, the other day I remembered when he fell over on his bike and he got up real fast. Those stories start collecting, and you just journaled about that. It starts bringing back those great memories about those loved ones. So allow yourself that time. Share with others if you need support. Go out there and ask for some help. There are groups in there. There are women's groups, there are men's groups. One of the things that I am doing, you may be able to tell if anybody, I'm not sure who can see me on here, but I'm actually currently traveling in what I call the Miracle Bus. The Miracle Bus is a 15-passenger shuttle bus that I purchased because my son wanted to travel. And the short of that story is it was a feat to be able to travel. And I told, all right, let's do it. How are we going to do it? He needed to have a hospital bed. We needed to have power and electricity because he was actually on a ventilator and breathing support. So I said, all right, we did it. I purchased the bus. We took the seats out of it. Found a portable hospital bed, extra power, so we had his ventilators and things. Took 2 caregivers with us, a bus driver and a dog, of course, because everybody's got to take their dog with them. And we took off across the country. So there's a lot of fun stories. Again, that is where if someone says my son's name, that passed just a little more than 3 short years ago, honestly. But I've done this work and I am so excited to say his name and share these stories. So now I currently take the Miracle Bus and drive in it. I am sitting here in the Smoky Mountains and Tennessee. I guess I should clarify that. That's at my daughter's house with those beautiful grandbabies again. And I have currently just gone over 3,000 miles on this particular trip. I left home about 4 weeks ago, and I'm not planning on going home for a couple of more weeks because I've been traveling around and speaking on some stages to support others that are grieving. And we also just had I got together with some other authors and we have a book collaboration that just went out, and that was exciting. I have another book that's coming out. So again, this is where I started. You have the journaling and you realize this is where your stories start coming back alive. And my story happened to be something of people started asking me, how did you do that? And I was thinking, that is kind of interesting. After that deep grief was going, I'm like, yeah, we did it. We got those great stories. And I literally did the breathing because my son couldn't breathe. I did the walking because my son couldn't walk. I was like, wow, we got to do something with this. And it goes and supports other individuals to help them in their grief and to help them with their moving forward, stepping forward into their future with the joy of still remembering their loved ones and taking those stories into the future.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. Like, to share those stories and to be on the shuttle bus right now, like, oh, so incredible and so empowering. I think, okay, sorry, I thought you froze for a minute there. I love the resilience and the grace that walking through something so hard and difficult in life, you've gotten back up and share the story of your son and your husband. And it's just so graceful about it. And I can't imagine the growth and the process along the way to get to where you're at. And yet you've been able to turn it into a light for others. It's just truly incredible. Before we close and wrap up today, I want to ask, what's one message that you want every woman listener to hear about grief and healing?
That is a beautiful question once again. I want you to know that give yourself time. You deserve to take the time for yourself. You deserve to take a breath, take a step, one step at a time. This is something that you are moving forward into your future. And it is not about forgetting. It is not about changing anything. It's about giving yourself time to step forward into the future while taking those beautiful memories of your loved ones with you and saying their name and keeping their memories alive.
Yes. Oh, so beautiful. If this conversation has touched your heart, please share it with a friend who's walking through loss and pain. Let her know that she's not alone. Let her know you're sorry for her loss. And Tina, if there is anyone going through a loss and grieving right now and would love to reach out for your help and your guidance, how can they get a hold of you?
I love that. Right now, I have a landing page that I put together under journeywithgoodthings.com. And that landing page just simply goes to a time slot on my calendar, because right now I've been interviewing some individuals to see how I can best help them. I've been adding stories to my book. I've also done some things in the local community with one-on-one and with group. And I have some upcoming retreats that I'm so excited about, very intimate, small group retreats. So again, the journeywithgoodthings.com is one. And I did want to mention also, because I've been adding to it, the Miracle Bus. The Miracle Bus is on Facebook right now, which I'm going to be adding to it and follow the journey. So some of you that might hear about this, get on there and ask me a question. And then maybe I'll do a little bit better about sharing some of the information, because I'm in it. I've been living in it for 3,000 miles and 4 weeks now. So I might as well be sharing some of this. And maybe I can come to a part of the country near you.
That's incredible. I'll make sure that we tag your website and then also the Miracle Bus, so that way make it easy for everyone to come and find you in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tina. I really appreciate you sharing with our audience all the things, from if you know someone who's going through loss to if you are that person going through a loss, and how to be able to support and move forward through it. It's really, to me, it's the unimaginable, but it is a reality. And so to be able to talk about it and address it and have more insight into how to support and how to grow is just, it's beautiful. So thank you so much, Tina.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
For all you ladies listening, remember, you are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to grow, because both can exist together. Until next time, I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
I'm showing up as the woman I was created to be.
I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be real.
One woman's courage gives another permission. I'm done waiting for someday. My time is now. I'm walking in faith, not fear.
God's plan for me is bigger than my fear.
No more hiding who I am. This is the real me, and I'm not apologizing for her.
Thank you for tuning in to the Unapologetic Podcast. If today's episode fired you up, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new one. And hey, leave a quick review, or sharing this with a friend helps us reach more women who need this message. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep living unapologetically.